Hello, and thanks for watching this from inside our small church, Claremont Free Church Baptist, situated at 167A Cheviot Gardens, London NW2 1PY. I want to talk today very briefly about a special event we've got happening at our church this coming Sunday on the 17th of May at 10:30 in the morning. And you don't need to be a Christian to attend. There's only one prerequisite. Just be curious. That's it. Just come along. And we have a speaker coming from a Christian charity called CAP, a truly remarkable charity. Now, I don't want to go into all the ins and outs of what this charity does, but you'll soon find out if you come along on a Sunday. All I will say is that this organisation works alongside people in poverty and serious debt. Their objective is quite simple: to get people to a stage in their lives where they become debt-free. So let's talk now about UK poverty and debt. Poverty and serious indebtedness is rapidly on the march here in the UK. But there's one thing I want you to realise. I want to mention right now an issue that you normally wouldn't associate with poverty and debt under normal circumstances. And remember that we're not living in normal circumstances. So right now, one of the main drivers, believe it or not, of poverty and debt here in the UK is war. That's right, I'm talking about war. I'm principally thinking about our two main wars occurring right now in front of us: the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the more relevant US-Iran one. So we've mentioned those two conflicts and how they are possible drivers, not the only drivers for UK poverty and debt, but nevertheless an important one. Now let's look at one of the ways in which God Almighty used war in the Old Testament. Here we have an example of God using war to confound the enemy and protect his people from harm and certain death. And the story that most readily comes to mind is in Exodus chapter 14, verses 21 to 29, where God instructs his servant Moses to part the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to walk along dry ground from one side of the Red Sea to the other. An absolute miracle. Only God could perform that, no one else. And of course, the Israelites were fleeing from their persecutors, the Egyptians, who were in hot pursuit. And once the Israelites got to the other side of the Red Sea, God said to his servant Moses, "Stretch out your hand again and bring the waters together," which of course Moses did. And no doubt the Egyptians were probably half to three-quarters the way across when all of a sudden they drowned and died once the waters closed together. Interesting that, because we see in that example God, the divine, protecting his very fallible, far from perfect Israelites, and then on the other hand, totally devastating and punishing their pursuers, the Egyptians. Interesting. So we got that one example from the Old Testament. Let's compare it now to modern day warfare. Does God, and I think we need to ask ourselves this question, does God use modern day warfare in exactly the same way as he did in the Old Testament? My own view is I don't think so. Rather, the way that modern day warfare is conducted is emblematic of a corrupt world and of a fallen humanity incapable of reaching compromises and only seeing its own red lines. Here's another subject which is also important when discussing debt and poverty in the UK, and that is the relationship between the global and national economies. War can have a massive negative effect on the global economy, which in turn is inextricably linked to the UK national economy. And we see this most clearly with the US-Iran hostilities. For it's not just oil, petrol, and diesel that become more expensive, but other things like mortgages that you wouldn't normally associate with war. Then we have food and items sold in shops. Financial services products become more expensive. And then supply lines become strained, and scarcity is the order of the day. And the result of all this is that we've all become poorer. The only exceptions to this general rule that I'm making right now are your Trumps, your Musks, your Zuckerbergs, and of course your Bezoses, who are shielded simply because of their vast wealth. When the global economy catches cold, we too also become financially and economically ill. Only today, for example, the Guardian newspaper reported that the UK is set to shed 160,000 jobs amid the Iran war fallout. So let me get back to our event. Please don't forget that date, the 17th of May at Claremont Free Church. Yep, this church where I'm sitting right now, 10:30 in the morning. I think you'll find the event interesting and sobering. And of course, you'll be warmly welcomed. Thank you.